Welcome back. I'm Ted Thomas, and I've been involved in real estate, especially alternative real estate, for the last 30 years. Now, anyone can buy stuff. That's the easy part. It's a whole new world when it comes to selling stuff. To increase the attention that you're going to get for a property, you're going to have to do a few things to be able to sell it. And one of those things is do owner financing and use a mortgage or a deed of trust or even a contract. So I'm going to try to explain those a little bit, give you some ideas that'll work. So owner-seller financing really opens up a lot of doors to a bigger market. Now, what do I mean by a bigger market? Well, there's a lot of wannabes that want to buy used and abused properties, and they need help with the financing. Now, there's a lot of these people out there. So my business has always been, let's buy at the tax defaulted auction and pay 60, 70, 80% less than normal, and then resell it. But I don't try to get top dollar. I'm going to give some kind of a discount. So number one, if you want to sell a property, you want to think about your pricing. If you price it right, that'll help sell a lot. So you don't want to try to get retail price. You want to be under that. Secondly, owner financing of the mortgage or a trust deed or a contract is going to be very important. Now, I'm not negative on any one of those, but they do have advantages and disadvantages. So the sellers are looking for a deal. They're bargain hunters and they want a deal. So this class and this episode is all about owner financing and how it works. So this is a step-by-step processes. Newcomers are looking for owners that will finance them. Why? Because maybe they don't have a credit history, maybe they have a poor credit history, maybe they just have a poor FICO score, maybe they've been through foreclosure. I don't know what they've been. But I'm going to answer the question. Financing mortgages. If you're going to sell the property yourself, price it right, use installment sales, that could be a mortgage. Now, if you're going to sell with a mortgage, you need to think. If the buyer that buys from you does not make all the payments, you're going to have to foreclose. If you have to foreclose under a mortgage, take my word for it, it's challenging. Why is it challenging? Because you need an attorney and you need a judge to finally lower the gavel and say it's done. That could take 6 months, 1 year. Attorneys can drag out foreclosures for 2 years. All right, if you're in a foreclosure process, I'll tell you right now, you're not getting payments. Number two, the taxes aren't being paid. Number three, the insurance is not being paid. So I've seen many investors have many problems because they sold using a mortgage and it took years to foreclose. So they had to keep making any underlying financing payments. They had to keep making insurance payments, and they had to keep making the insurance of the tax payments. So my point is, you want to sell not using a mortgage. So the question is, how do owner financing mortgages work? Well, think of the mortgage as a lending device. Well, it's the same thing with a deed of trust. It's a lending device. The same thing with a contract. The contract is a document that's a promissory note that lays out all the terms. It's called a contract for sale or a contract for deed. What you're after is you want to have living expenses. So if you want living expenses and you want to grow your business, you need to get regular payments. Anytime you get involved in mortgages, it could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years before you started getting your property back and get it back in order. All right, the mortgage is a lending device. I want you to think about a deed of trust, and I want you to think about a contract. You can get those at title companies, attorneys, and you can buy them online. The point is, I'd use an attorney or a title company so that you know what you're doing. All right, now selling with financing requires a little bit of patience, but that little bit of patience can make you wealthy very quickly because you're not only going to make the money on selling the property. So let's say you buy a property for 30 cents on the dollar, you sell it for 60 cents on the dollar, you had a nice margin there, that's great. So now you've made margin, you got profit. All right, now if you sell it using owner-selling financing, the owner-seller financing could be a mortgage, it could be a deed of trust, it could be a contract of sale. I'm negative on the mortgage only because it takes so long if the people don't pay. All right, these sales are simply called installment sales. So it's owner installment sale. Now, an installment sale means they're going to give you a down payment, that's good, and they're going to make monthly payments. Well, how would you like to make the deal once and then get payments for 10 years? Well, you'd like that. So you can do that with an installment sale contract, just like you would a refrigerator or a car. You can do that on a property. Now, before I go any further, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a broker. I'm an individual that specializes in buying and selling tax lien certificates, tax defaulted properties. I've been a coach, a mentor, and a guide to others for 30 years. But I don't use mortgages because it involves an attorney and a judge. Anytime there's an attorney and a judge involved, you're going to be shelling out money all the time to that attorney, and they just keep that process going for a long time. So installment sales are going to help you sell. Now, when you buy a property and you want to accelerate the process of getting rid of it, you price it right, use an installment sale, and you do a ton of media. Now, if you don't do those things, you're going to have a problem. If you're going to sit there and wait because you don't want to hire a broker to help you, or you don't want to do an installment sale, it's going to take a little while. I'm not telling you not to sell them without the installment sale, but if you want to accelerate the process, it really works. Now, thousands of people before you have been successful with this process. This is something you can do, and on this particular episode, I'm answering the question, how do owner financing mortgages work? Well, they work like an installment sale of a refrigerator or a car. You just simply make a down payment and continuously make payments until it's all paid for. It's a good way to buy property, especially if you don't have a big down payment or you don't have a really strong credit history. All right, so we're having a short discussion now in the middle of all this about the different kinds of loans. So a mortgage is something that banks use all the time. But the banks have standards, and their standards are very high. So they're trying to get people with great credit scores. By that it means 700 and more, people that have long-term employment, people that have high-paying jobs. That's what the bank wants. They might not want your buyer because your buyer is willing to pay some money for a used and abused property that isn't brand new. So if they're willing to do that, they're looking for a deal, maybe a low down payment, maybe installment sale. All right, so you need to provide those things, and you need to use a lot of marketing and media to let them know it's available. So I've been teaching and guiding people for over 30 years to do this. The people that accelerate their sale and make them quickly are the ones that, number one, they don't try to get a high price, and number two, they're willing to do an installment sale, and number three, they let the world know about it by using an awful lot of media. All right, now how do we get these properties? Well, if you're on my channel, you're looking for properties that are at tax auctions that are probably being sold at 60, 70, 80% discounts. All right, why would the government do that? Because they just want the property back on the tax roll. So you're going to make a great deal, and when you buy the property, the mortgage will be wiped out. In other words, they'll X out the mortgage that was on it. So you're getting a property that's free and clear. But when you sell it, if you want to sell it quickly, America buys on installments. They want installments. All right, so you provide them with installments. They want instant gratification. That means they want a low down payment, they want installments, and most of them don't care about if they have to pay for 30 years. They don't argue about that, but they'll talk to you about a little bit about interest rates, but you don't have to give them a great deal in interest. Now, a bank gives you a great deal in interest. In today's market, it's 3 or 4%. In our market, where we're selling with installment sales, what we're doing is, again, 7, 8, 9, 10% interest, which is 2.5 times what the bank is getting. Well, you're going to make all that profit. So number one, you buy it wholesale. Now you sell it and make a profit. All right. So now you get your money and you're selling at a profit, and you're going to make money on the financing. Okay. Now this is taking place, with 3,000 counties and 1,400 different municipalities. We're entrepreneurs. We can make any kind of deal we want. We can make it right there on the hood of your car if you want to do it there. You can get your contracts from a title company or an attorney. All right. All of these individual taxing districts are going to want to get properties out there and get them sold. Well, why wouldn't you want to go there and buy for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar, and there's no encumbrance on what you buy? But when you sell, now you can be making money. All right. So now east of the Mississippi River, there's usually the usage of installment sales is usually a mortgage. You don't have to use a mortgage, but the banks will. All right, west of the Mississippi and in certain areas in the South, they're using a trust deed loan document. It's virtually the same, except with the trust deed, they don't have to put up with attorneys or judges when they want to foreclose. They simply say, we're going to foreclose, and when they do that, they're going to have that property in 30 or 60 days back in your ownership, and they'll have kicked the owner out. All right. With a contract of sale, you can probably do that in 30 days. Whereas with a mortgage, people are going to ask you for a 30-year mortgage. Yeah, forget that. You don't want to do any of that. Okay, so when you're selling a property or you're going to buy one, you're going to have to determine your exit strategy. So how do I exit? I exit by having to lower the normal price. I also exit by thinking about seller financing. Okay, am I going to use a mortgage? No. I'm going to use installment sale, though. All right, and then finally, what kind of media am I going to use? All right, now, when you're talking about media, here's what you have to think about. How many places can you expose this property? Certainly, you can put a big sign on the front lawn. No problem at all, right? You can put signs around the neighborhood. No problem. Now you need to think about media that's going to work for you. Zillow will work for you. Trulio will work for you. You want to think about Craigslist. You want to think about eBay. You want to think about the broker you hired to help you is make sure we get it on the MLS. You need to put this property in as many places as possible, and you need to advertise that it's a bargain, an auction bargain. You need to advertise it's going to be an installment sale, and you need to advertise that it's owner financing or seller financing. Why? Because those are all things that people are looking for, and you want to get this property sold as quickly as possible. All right, now keep in mind, you're doing this because you want to make money. Now, you want to make money, but you don't want to give the property away. So you're going to buy at a bargain, but you're going to take some of your retail profit and you're going to drop it down. Instead of getting 100% on the property, you might only make a 30% profit. But that's plenty of profit. And now sell it with installment sale. That'll add to your profit. And that's what you're after. All right, remember, these properties are all sold by a county treasurer. They're properties that were confiscated. They were confiscated because people didn't pay their tax. So I'm about to finish up. I think I've given you most of the information, but I do want to make sure that you don't buy junk at the auction. Only buy good stuff. So 2 words of caution, I've already talked about that, is don't buy properties that you haven't seen, and make sure that you have a selling strategy. Now, right below me is a free gift. You can go there and get that free gift right now.